Winded answer to your very basic questions of how did I come to the place I am today, but that's kind of the story. My own cases, and I worked on thousands of cases all through the 70s and 80s. Other works began to come out indicating that there was something more to just past life regression. There was this other area perhaps. Finally, when I had pretty close to about 7,000 cases and boxes and boxes of notes, I really retired from Los Angeles, where my practice had been, and moved up to where I am today in Northern California in the Sierra foothills. Began to write my first book, which was published in 1994, and I'll show it to you. It was called Journey of Souls. And Journey of Souls was my first book to indicate to the public what it is like to cross over, what it is like to die and cross over. Who comes to meet us? Where do we go? It was really an eye-opener because Journey of Souls was intended to be kind of like an overview, sort of like a play, if you will, as a soul passes through the spirit world and what they do there and how they return and how they choose their bodies. It was an overview, but by no means did it give anywhere near the detail that I'd collected from those cases. So a number of years went by. Let's see, that book was published, Journey of Souls was published in '94. And in 2001, my second book was published, and during the interim period of time, this book, Destiny of Souls, was a lot more detail that I had not brought out. People on the lecture circuit would tell me, Michael, we know that you know more. You're not telling us. One of the things they wanted to know was how people who we love very much, who have crossed over, come back and touch us. In chapter 2 of this book, I describe how spirits come back, reach back and come to touch us in various ways, whether it be through small children, through flowers, through clothes, through connecting with the individual themselves. So I explained that. Now, the third book and my last book is Life Between Lives. The reason I wrote this book was because for a long time I fought with the idea of giving a map, so to speak, of how I had unlocked a lot of the information that I had about the spirit world. Now, Life Between Lives is really a book designed to do two things. It came out a few years after my second book, I think around 2004. The book had a purpose of teaching other hypnotherapists how to access the information I had on helping people reach their in-between life state. I mean, for decades we'd had books on past lives, but there was no book like this. So that's partly the reason I wrote it. The other reason I wrote it was because I wanted people to see what the process was like. I didn't want them to be fearful of it, and I thought if they understood and knew how a therapist can take people in hypnosis, very, very deep in hypnosis, into a life between life state, they would be less nervous about wanting the procedure themselves. I also hoped that a lot of people who were using my first two books inappropriately and not doing the correct things in my view, that this book would be kind of like a textbook for hypnotherapists to help them in that regard. And I'd like to also say, Alan, that I decided in 2001 to form my own organization where I could train hypnotherapists and train others to help me do this. And I did that in 2001. And so today I have an active organization of people who are doing this sort of work. It's kind of a long-winded answer to your very basic questions of how did I come to the place I am today, but that's kind of the scenario.